This episode of UDSP is brought to you by Shutterstock, with over 28 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips. Shutterstock helps you take your creative projects to the next level. For 25% off your new account, just go on over to Shutterstock.com and use offer code Gamebreaker9. What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 15 of UDSP for September 3rd. That's right, it was supposed to be second, but it's 2013. You're watching Gamebreaker. I'm Gary Gannon. Today we got to talk PAX. Lots of info out of the PAX. MMORPG.com spoke to Chris Lynch, and we still don't have our classes. All that and more. But first, joining us as always, Mr. Farhan Siddiqui. How are you, sir?
Hello, doing well.
Excellent. And from Guild Umbra, it's Mark Taylor. How are you, sir?
Doing good.
Excellent. Nursing that sunburn. All right. Carbine live streamed a panel from PAX with a ton of new info. So I'm going to kind of jump through this. Thanks to Evil Potato on the Reddits for bullet pointing basically all of the highlights. First, I'm going to blaze through a lot of these things, but check this out. Housing customization extends into the sky with all sorts of different skyboxes, fireworks, snow, etc. This is really nice to know. I didn't know if I expected a full-on skybox for housing to be possibly unique.
It's pretty neat because what it's saying is that basically they really want you to have complete the feel that you want. When you're inside your house, you can customize the lighting to however you want, but even outside, you're going to be able to control that skybox. And just, WildStar does some pretty amazing stuff with their skybox. Like, I've seen in one of these videos, they're talking about how they can, like, paint the sky when their designers are actually, like, doing the art for their skyboxes. They can just, like, right in-game, they have, like, a tool that they can use to customize it right there. So
draw, like, right on the skybox? That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and in like the thing you can see like in the panel they showed them like editing the skybox and choosing which one they want. They have tons of them in there. It's not even like okay, yeah, like 5 skyboxes to choose from. They have like like Happy Land was the one that they had in the panel, like this rainbow. And
do you think it's gonna be? Do you guys think it's gonna be possibly even more than just a simple skybox though? Like maybe you think you'll actually be able to choose like say which zone your housing plot was meant to be above, so you can kind of utilize that weather and effect.
Look down over
look down over your zone.
That would be pretty neat. I mean, I don't know if you'd actually be able to see the stuff that's going on in the zone. Probably not, because it is instanced. But, you might
think they'll create something, though, to give you the illusion of that, because Jeremy Gaffney said, maybe it was at Gamescom or E3, that their intention in a post-launch world is to have it so that your houses can actually move, so you could go from zone to zone. I'm assuming, right? If he's saying that they can go places, right?
Sure. So it makes sense that you'd have to actually see that happen, or to have at least have the illusion that you're going to. I just think it'd be cool, if you're kind of above a snowy zone, and obviously maybe it's snowing in your housing box, things like that down below. It'd be really interesting if you could actually see what was happening, see people running around. That'd be cool. I wonder what happens if you jump off your housing plot, if they allow that. Do you parachute? Do you land? Do you not? Is there a visible wall?
Invisible wall.
You think so?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, probably.
We'll have to see. So some more information we got out of there was that there's going to be multiple architectural styles that you can have with your house. So Aurin, Aurin, being nature-driven. They showed that off. This is kind of awesome. If you do really well in a challenge in the main game, you actually have a chance to unlock it for your house. So examples were given like a tower defense game, or jumping in a tornado to collect crystals.
Yeah.
Talk about incentive, though, to go and run and do, this kind of content that's out in the world. It's like you want to collect the houses, have different pads, all that kind of stuff. I think you could actually get a telegraph training facility, right?
Yeah, and the telegraph training facility was actually when they showed it off in the panel, it looked difficult because there's the spinning flamethrower that's shooting out flames in different directions, and you had to go around with it, and then suddenly it would start because it was rotating, right, and the flames were coming towards you, and then suddenly it would stop and start turning the other way, and then there would be other explosions that were going on at the same time. The person who was demoing it actually failed the thing. It was like, oh, yep, so that's the telegraph thing. He jumped off, started going over to the next thing. So I think that'll really help, actually, if you can actually customize that to have different kinds of things for maybe like for a different dungeon or something like that, or just in general, just to get used to it, just in this safe zone where you don't feel bad about dying all the time.
I'm loving how the whole housing system is shaping up.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it can be pretty much anything you're wanting. I mean, just like that, the telegraph system. I mean, you saw them in our earlier dev speak talking about DPS dummies. So you could pretty much have anything you want, whether you want to have your own little crafting environment or whether you want to have your own access to adventures, your raids. I mean,
all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of wondering if they're going to have drops in raids. You know how like in Tor you could get a car as a drop or a vehicle, and in addition to like loot. Like many MMOs have like mounts or things. It'd be interesting to see if there's like a chair or something crazy that you could drop for your house.
A throne.
And people are going to be. I gotta have that.
Well, yeah. I mean, they say there's going to be plenty of ways to like get decorations. You're going to have vendors in your house, rep vendors at your house, challenges, mobs, housing dungeons, which are literally going to be. Yes, housing dungeons. Like there's going to be dungeons content at your house. They're going to be called expeditions and scale up to 5 players depending on the party size. So you could have group content on your housing plot. I guess I'm asking this as a question. Like, do you guys think you could actually have group content on your housing plot that your friends don't have?
Yeah, I mean, like it could be something where it's pretty hard to get or in some way like expensive, so you want to design it like what I want my house to be now is going to be like a PvP training ground, right? You're going to have like your telegraphs, the training section, you're going to have your other stuff. Everything's going to be set up so that people I bring in people and then I charge them money to be trained.
Well, that's what I was wondering, because if you even if you talk about even like say dungeons, right? Like let's say you're talking you get like a super rare expedition basically that not a lot of people have. I wonder if you could actually start charging people to come to your housing plot and run the dungeon.
Well, I mean, sorry, go ahead.
It very well could be, because I think that's also an analog into dailies. Because remember, Jeremy was the Gaffer or whatever was talking about how that's going to be one of your access to dailies, a house daily. Imagine that, So there's no reason why I couldn't or shouldn't, right?
Now, what's the big?
They've talked about one of the trade skills being like just completely centered around housing. Like I think it's architecture or something like that, where you'd literally like that trade skill is creating housing plugs and things for your house. So there's definitely going to be some sort of demand behind that, because otherwise, like what you create it like the one time and then like everyone's done with it or something like that. There's probably going to be some sort of mechanic in there to get people to like use a plug, and then they need to like refresh it in some way and get it back into the game.
And the thing does this worry you guys at all about like just the fact like they're putting so much effort into the housing stuff, and it sounds so awesome that people won't leave their houses and just like towns will be dead? I mean, that's the one they talked about, how they didn't want not wanting people to just hang out at their houses, but they're putting so much there. I don't know. It just sounds like it could be a possible. So you're talking about like banks, auction house, dungeons, possibly like loading into PvP and things like it sounds like, I don't know, a lot of people might just hang out at their house.
That is one of the questions that they fielded. Like someone was concerned. They asked them at the panel, like what's going to happen to the cities? I like to socialize in the capital cities. If I have my bank and I have everything else, and among like other responses, like they said that you're not going to be able to do everything in the house. The house is like a microcosm of what you can do in the game. So obviously all that stuff is in the game as well. You can do it out there. But also they like you can see it in the panel yourself. You can see like the UI that they're using to choose the plugs. You have a limited number of plug slots. You won't be able to have everything in one house. So, even if you specifically try to customize your house the way you want to play it, there's still going to be other stuff that you're going to need to do, either visiting someone else's house or, actually more realistic, probably just going out into the world and doing whatever it is that you couldn't fit into your house.
And I guess the other thing that they talked about that they said they're going to do to kind of combat that a little bit is that using the bank or the auction house from your house will actually include a fee. So they're going to charge you for that, I guess, to try and encourage you maybe to get a little bit more over to the world and not just keep spending your money at your house to do that. I am a little worried though, like, if it's really super, super cheap and you're able to do a lot of these things, I think it is going to have a lot of people sitting on these like instance islands away from the rest of the world. And it could potentially make the world feel a little bit less populated.
But is that something that's going to be, I don't think that's going to be an issue as people level. I think that's going to be an end game or an elder game kind of issue, in which case, by the time the server becomes mature, air quotes, and the majority of the folks have like a level 50 or whatever, you kind of become isolated. And I don't know, tell me if I'm wrong, push back, but I mean, it kind of seems like in a lot of MMOs you kind of become isolated anyway, because
really, Orgrimmar's not isolated.
Okay, so this is what I mean. There's a lot of folks like in guilds that will only log in on raid night, after they've kind of done everything. So you only see them on Tuesdays and Thursdays, between 8 and midnight or whatever. So I'm trying to say, for some element, it's just going to be like that naturally, whether they had a housing toy to play with, you know what I mean? So, or they're going to be just raiders that come in some nights. So to some degree, it's going to be there regardless. It just gives them something else to do to be in the game, I guess is my point.
I think one thing that might help create a really social public atmosphere would be if crafting items truly is great in the game, and the items actually really are just awesome best in slot pieces that certain crafters who are just really good at crafting can make these things. I could and hope to see at some point literally people standing out in the city and just being like bartering, like, hey, I got this, two-hander, blah, blah, blah. Like that creates huge amount of chatter and talk between people. So that would be one reason to get out of your house and get out of your instance to go find good stuff. So, but I think that still remains to be seen. Next up, this kind of surprised me, 12 character slots. Currently, they're offering 12 character slots. I can't figure out, I'm not complaining, but it seems really generous, and I can't figure out where this number came from. I mean, you got 8 races, 6 classes. Where does 12 come from?
So the Reddit thread said, the bullet point said 12. When I watched the panel, I counted 10. So I don't know if that's if it was actually said in the panel or something, and it's not just counting when he was at the login screen or something. Just two things. Like, first of all, I think if it is 10, then that's just because maybe because it's a round number or something like that. And secondly, if it's not, then that looked like a really placeholder UI. Mm-hmm. So who knows if that's actually going to be what it is at the end. But yeah.
I think it's basically so that folks could have multiple characters of the same base class, but they have different focuses. So, for example, you're a Makari warrior, so you want one class to be a tank, or one character, Makari warrior, to be a tank, but then you want another one for DPS. So you're the same faction, same base class. You just have a different purpose when you raid or whatever.
Sure, no.
Because I do that all the time.
The game does seem like pretty alt-friendly, though. Just in terms of like what you can do with alt. One of the questions that they asked about the panel was like, what would you have in terms of BOA gear? They didn't really talk specifically to bind on account kind of stuff, but they did say that you can like have one. You could, if you wanted to, have a separate house for each of one of your characters. But what you could also do is have all of your characters sort of, use one house and get like the experience bonuses and other things that you get out of your house. Because like as I said. Based on how well you decorate your interior of your house and then you rest inside of your house, you get more rested experience based on that. And that was something that I actually was a little bit concerned about, just like if that is one of their big motivating things, how does that play into endgame? Because once you get to level 50, then, okay, rested experience, not really as useful. But with the alts thing, then that's one thing. And the other thing that actually came out of this panel that I hadn't heard about, this is why I wanted to talk about this, is that they actually had this idea that, okay, so once you get to the max level, you're still going to be earning experience. And this isn't something that I had heard before, so correct me if this is old information. But once you get to max level, then you still keep gaining experience, and that goes into what they call elder points. And then you can convert those into elder gems, which I think you might be able to get in some other way as well, besides just experience. And you use that to actually progress your character. You use that to buy like expensive housing plugs, or things like that. You could use it for character customization, for mounts, and so what it really plays into is like, okay, so experience is all of the things the systems that build on experience that in a lot of other games sort of just fall down afterward. Like I know World of Warcraft, like they did like the whole questing experience to gold thing, but besides that, like they don't need to rebalance like the economy around like, oh, all of a sudden all this experience becomes gold. What they can do instead is they just keep all those systems about experience, very useful
into these gems. Yeah, it's really interesting that they could do that with those gems and then build on to like, even cosmetic stuff, like you said, like mounts, things like that, housing gems. And this was really interesting. An in-game machinima tool was already made through Houston, their add-on program. Crazy already. Add-on machinima tools coming. Game's not even close to being out. Speaking of Elder Game, and they're saying entire zones are dedicated to Elder Game PvE. What did you guys take?
Awesome.
What did you take away from that? I mean, it sounds on paper, it sounds awesome. It does. But what did you take away from that?
The one thing I thought is I hope that it's better than Ilum. I was like, well, there's this right? area. No, I know, but I'm trying to say, their attempt was to have some place to go that you had to be max level to get to. So the fact that they're just building, even if they did nothing more than just extrapolate something that they already have, throw in a couple of new mobs and some new quests, the fact that you have quest materials and things to do at endgame, it's like one big daily, So that's awesome.
I mean, do you see this as sort of like ore?
Maybe it could be something like that. Really, what where this question came up, where this part about like, okay, there's Elder Game zones. Somebody was asking about basically, like this is something that we talked about last week a little bit. That other games say like the person referenced BioWare specifically. This is like they said that there's this much gameplay in the game, and then it actually ended up taking players like only a couple of weeks to get through most of it. And so you guys are saying 150 hours. How long is it actually going to take, and what's your plan for the long term? And so what they said is that they don't want to gate players. They don't want to stretch out gameplay and make it so that, okay, you feel like I'm being gated. I'm being, they're stopping me from progressing my character. They're stopping me from getting to the Elder Game sooner just so that they have more time to build Elder Game. And that's not something that they want to do. Instead, what they're saying is that, okay, so while you're leveling up, the story is neat and all, but a lot of people are going to be focused on leveling it, and they're not going to be paying as much attention to the story. So the stories that there are told in your level up experience, they're interesting, they're cool, but they're more like side stories. You're not going to really get into the meat of the lore until you get to Elder Game, and that's the point where you have all these zones and other parts of the game that are actually going to be, telling the main story of what happened at Nexus, what happened with the Elden.
The thing that's smart about that is, when I was in the Army, the common phrase was, especially for training and getting people ready for combat, is that you train to standard, not time, which means you don't just go to work every day and say, okay, it's time to make the donuts. We get here at 9, we leave at 5. No, you're going to be there as long as it takes to get it right. And so this is the same kind of methodology. They're not necessarily going to build, work to try to build 60 hours, 100 hours, 50 hours, whatever the number may be. They're going to try to make sure that they have enough content that's just of a good caliber, a good quality. And, whether that be, between the levels of 60 to, or, 20 to 30 or 30 to 40, 10 quests, 12 quests, 50 quests, they're going to try to make sure that all of the quests are of a certain caliber, to make sure that you're having fun, to make sure that you're getting XP through a number of different avenues, different ways to, grind out XP or to quest out XP, but they're trying to not make sure that they have these artificial barriers. And I think, in the panel, that was kind of one of the words that they were saying is, some kind of artificial mechanism to govern how fast you can level, because, some people, no matter what you do, they're going to be 50 tomorrow, right? And then you're going to have the snails like me who are going to probably take a month or two to get to 50 for whatever reason. But they want to try to make sure that both people have a fun experience.
But
so that's the reason why?
Are most trash quests basically to govern your time in the game? I mean, let's be honest. Like, how many times are you going to kill 10 rats for like some farmer in a game? It's like that's just killing time. Like, that's all it's doing.
Yeah, but remember, that was the reason why, 2 or 3 weeks ago now, before PAX and Gamescom, they came out with the state of the beta, and they said that was what they were doing. And that was what the folks in beta were complaining about, because it was kill 10 rats or kill 10 space rats. So what they're now doing is they're going to keep the mechanics the same, the core skill, the core game, but they're changing their quests. They're like completely rehauling that so that now you have a range of finite tasks to accomplish within a level of acceptance, and then once that's complete, then you can finish or get your block checked, but you might only get, say, 60% of the maximum amount of XP you could have gone, whether if you're a racehorse, and then if you're more meticulous and you do all the different side things within there, then you get 100% of it. So I guess that would probably equate to bonus XP for extrapolating it to another game.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be really. I mean, this all gets down to like how they're building out the leveling curve, right, and just how they're really kind of gating that. I mean, it is all gating. Let's be honest, it really is for the most part, And even I only kind of compare it to right now because I'm playing Final Fantasy 14 is how that works. And what I actually like what they've done is I started playing, doing almost everything. I was doing every side quest, everything I saw, I was doing it, and I was already getting burnt out. I was like, man, I don't want to kill these 10 freaking dodos. Like, I just don't want to do this anymore. Like, I'm kind of over it. And then somebody said, like, no, don't bother. Just don't bother doing that stuff. Do your class quests, progress the story. And I think I've heard you can get off track around like level 30, 35, somewhere in there where it doesn't really kind of stay the course. But it's actually really interesting right now to play the game in a way that like I actually feel like I'm progressing the story and there's something meaningful going on with how the storytelling is working. And all these stupid side quests are just like, I'm not even doing them at this point. So I wish an MMO company would just figure out a way to take up your time for those other things in a way of not just making you go kill 10 rats and FedEx quests. Like if they could come up with another mechanism that you'd have to sort of engage in while you're doing your story quest. I don't know, whole nother conversation. But
well, I mean, so I don't think that this is the cure to what you're talking about, but hopefully things like the path system, so that you can choose to do some quests of a different type, or that kind of content is hopefully in there so that you can feel like you have a little bit of a choice. You don't have to like grind through exactly what their quests are. So when you do run into a quest that is a FedEx quest or whatever, maybe you don't necessarily have to pick it up and you have to do it because you have that choice of, okay, I want to do these path stuff instead. So hopefully that does work out.
Something that's so interesting, the philosophy behind WildStar, though, of what they're focusing on. So this is something I really liked as well. It kind of goes hand in hand. It's so funny because I feel like they're so catering. It's great. I love it. It's like when everybody's Yuri the book, zag, when everybody's zigzag or whatever it is, like when everybody zigs, you zag. Like they're doing everything the opposite. So their web interface actually literally already, it's got world first, server first, tournament info, maybe even like friends and guild stuff. And it's just, I find it amazing that more MMO companies don't take advantage of this stuff because they have the data, but I guess they feel like even the added time to create some of these like UI elements and spreadsheets of menu items is too costly for possibly the amount of use they'll get. But it's funny because WildStar's going that complete route. Like they're literally going to show you all these different like little leaderboards and world first, server first, tournament, all this kind of stuff, which is pretty cool. I don't understand why other companies don't take advantage of this stuff. I mean, it's just another way to possibly give players something to work towards and look at on a daily basis and kind of level up.
I think a lot of other games are starting to learn that, and it is one of those things that sort of game development, like if you compare it to non-game development in terms of software, Togrim at Park, he sort of had this blog post about this a while back. He was complaining about how when you compare game development to other software development, game development progresses really slowly. Like they don't learn lessons from other game companies nearly as quickly as like big corporations learn from one another. And but I do think it is one of those things. So like, I mean, think of like older MMOs or even just like vanilla WoW. Like you didn't have something like the Armory or whatever. All of that stuff was user based, and I think a lot of game companies were sort of like resting on their laurels. They were like, okay, our users will create all that stuff for us. We don't need to necessarily invest in that and do it. But I am glad that Carbine is taking a little bit more initiative and hiring those web dev people to actually create that kind of stuff.
I mean, there are like iOS and iPhone games almost completely strictly around a leaderboard. Like they're the simplest of games out there that are like so basic in nature, yet the game is the leaderboard. So I don't know, kudos to them for kind of picking up on this stuff, because this is stuff I think a lot of other games leave off and they say, oh, that's coming in 6 months or that's coming in a year, and then it kind of that's too late. The PvPers have been burnt out. They want their leaderboard. Lots of character customization they aren't able to elaborate on right now. We've got a dye system, though, and the word costume was used. Now, I don't know. What did you guys think this means? I guess it could either mean, clown costume or Possibly sort of like 2 slots for armor, 1 for looks, 1 for stats, maybe like Lotro.
It did sound like that latter path. Either something like transmog or something like having separate slots for looks, because what they said is, and this is something that actually made me pretty happy, the way that they talked about it. Their art director was talking about it, and he said that basically, as long as you aren't in a PvP environment, you can choose however you want to look, which sort of satisfies me, because that's a lot of the concern in PvP. It's like, oh, I won't be able to tell how geared this person is just from looking at them in World PvP or in other situations. I guess World PvP might not count, but at least for other situations, at least you can look at them and see, okay, I know what's coming at me, basically. And so what they said is that as long as you're not in a PvP situation, you will be able to, like, raid, and if you want to raid looking like, whatever you want, I think they said, like, in your underwear, basically. You could, if you want to do that, then, or if you find like a trench coat at level 5, was the other example they gave, then you could sort of make your character look like that however you want the rest of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I was on a press call with those guys maybe a month ago. Their new press manager, Mr. Schelling, and Mr. Frost, and then their art director and game director, and they were trying to talk around the issue. They were trying to say everything they could except, let's say, social gear. And then, I just was on, it was a conference call for a bunch of folks on the press, and I was just like, social gear. And then they were like, oh, well, we really can't say, so it's social gear. Okay? It's social gear. Make yourself look cool if you think that level 5 trench coat is badass relative to the in-game gear, right?
I mean, I think that's what everybody wants, right? Everybody just wants that freedom, especially when it comes to customization on gear and stuff like that. So pretty good with that. Also, I mean, we don't see too many games do this, but you're also going to be able to customize your mount, which is interesting.
Yep. What I wonder is how far that plays into the game. Like, does that actually mean that it has different functionality based on it, or is it just completely cosmetic?
Don't know.
I mean, SWG had that, 10 years ago? You could have different colors or paints for your mount, so it's not like some crazy stretch if you're just going to come up with a number of different skins that you could put on it, right? Now, if you're talking about different functionality, then that's a pioneering change, right?
Yeah, it also could be a probably balancing nightmare. Who knows? Now you've got to figure out all the combinations between the character path and class and mount somehow, if it actually interacts somehow. Who knows? I got a feeling it's going to be just straight up cosmetic customization, different armor, skins, things like that.
One thing that I thought was pretty cool that came out about mounts, just sorry to throw this in there, was in one of the interviews I saw something about how mounts will have like a amount of shield, so it's not just like random damage knocks you off your mount or whatever. You actually can see how much health or shield or whatever that your mount has, so you can actually control that. I don't know. I just want to throw that out there. I thought that was cool.
Somebody in chat saying, I don't know if this is confirmed, but somebody's talking about how they talked about speed boosts and etc. and things like that on mounts. So that actually does change the way mount works right then and there, even if you have stuff like that. So who knows? Somebody over at Carbine may or may not have been watching the show last week. I would say they must have, but we talked a bit about telegraphs and wondering if they would have a colorblind option, and they will. So there you go. Just wanted to throw that in there. So awesome to hear that they're paying attention to that. Alt characters will be supported with what sounds like account-bound mounts and the ability to stay at your main character's house, which I think could be really cool because now you can basically work on your house no matter what character you're basically working on. No, nothing on guild housing though. They haven't said anything on guild housing. Do you guys think guild housing is necessary with all the housing options?
I'll let Mark field this.
I don't know about necessary because most MMOs don't have it, right? So, right. But it's definitely something that's wanted. Whether it's nerdy or not, most people have used TeamSpeak to become that guild hall or Ventrilo or something. But people, or at least guilds, like the idea of a place to go get together. If nothing, a place to put together you folks so you can do guild shots for websites, or it just gives them a feeling of home, especially if it can tie into the economy, which they're talking about, guild economy. So I don't know if it's necessary, but I just know it's something that's highly desired, right? And they've kind of alluded to it. They've, again, kind of like the whole social gear thing. They start going down a line of question and answer. and then you stick them with that question, and then they have to backtrack and talk around it. And they're like, oh well, we can't really talk about this stuff and things and trickle down economics and blah blah, and I'm pretty sure that's what they're working on.
What do you find that, like, if you did have guild housing, like, what do you think, like, what would mostly you use it for? Like, just to congregate as you're just socialing in chat?
I think initially that's kind of the nerd mecca, right? To just have a place that you can call your own and decorate it and put stuff in it that you think makes your guild special. It's like, farming or something that's therapeutic. It's just something that people like to do. But then it gives you a backdrop or a reason to get folks together to take snapshots. Depending on how active guilds are, they like to take, group photos every quarter or something like that. And they'll talk about that. I mean, there were group shots that we took in Tor 2 years ago, like, after the first month, that my guild still talks about. Like, remember when we did that? That was cool. And as stupid as that might seem, that's a social thing that actually means something to people who get together in these social constructs called guilds.
I'm still talking about player cities in SWG, man. It's been a long time, and I'll just keep talking about them. And I
yeah, and so as nostalgic and goofy as that is, you just can't take that away from that.
Those are most of the stories that MMO players like carry with them throughout the years and actually talk about, that actually like stay with them and resonate longer. That's why I can't understand why these game companies have not realized that those are some of the most important like times and aspects that players have had. But I don't necessarily know if it could just be a facade. Like, it can't just be like a facade of something. Like, there has to be meaning towards it, which is why, again, back in SWG, the meaning was that, like, players could come and burn your shit down, and like, and it was hard work.
It's also one of those things that it doesn't do a very good job of being conveyed as a consumer mechanism, right? So in survey reports and things, when people are talking about, well, what is it you want in your game, or like you're quitting the game or canceling your subscription, well, what is it we could have done better? Nobody's going to say, well, you should have had guild housing. Or in beta, when they talk about what are some of the things that you could put in here, nobody brings up, guild housing. They might say player housing, maybe, but it's just one of those things that just people forget.
But it's very rarely put in as like a mechanism. Like, you don't really usually fight guild, go siege a guild hall, or go siege, if that doesn't happen, then yes, it's just a facade. It's just some pixels of a wall, and you guys just hang out there. And then I can understand why developers are sort of like, this is a waste of resources, time, and money for them to just make all these buildings for people to just kind of hang out in, and that's all they really do. But immediately, put a resource dump on them and upkeep. Put random, acts of natural disaster, and put, random NPC / player versus players sort of on top of that. And then it becomes something that you actually care about. Like, this is the Guild Umbra Hall. We care about this place. We spent 4 months building it. Like, we're going to defend it. Like, that's everything else. I just think is like, it's just dress up.
I mean, like in Age of Conan, we'd have, a keep out in the PvP zone, and, we would fight to defend it, or we'd fight to try to take somebody else's keep and make it ours. And, I remember the day when we got the crap beat out of us, and I had to sit there and watch from my dead body on the screen and watch them burn and destroy.
Just burning your place down. You're like,
burn it to the ground, because I could have just logged out, but, I was just sitting there going, we're sitting there talking to each other in vent going, yeah, there goes the temple. Yeah, there goes the training ground. We're trying to figure out like how bad the damage was going to be before they left. Trying to figure out, okay, that's about a month's worth of gathering, and I mean,
that's the story you just brought years later to the show. Like, that's what
exactly.
And that was a real visceral event that wasn't scripted, wasn't sort of put into the game by the devs. Like, that's something other players did. I think so many games are missing the mark by not getting this right, that aspect of it. What do you think about this? Our producer has a crazy idea. He says, what about if you take he says, screw guild halls, and he wants to just be able to have guild members put all their housing plots just like together in like a floating island city.
I would accept that if I couldn't get the latter, or the former rather.
I mean,
that would be awesome by itself.
They definitely have some of the tech to like put stuff together. Just I mean, one thing that they mentioned in the panel was like a chance for an event where like a marauder house will like float up to your plot, and then you can like board their marauding house or whatever. I think that was like a PvE kind of experience. But one thing that you guys are talking about all this stuff, and I don't unfortunately have a lot of experience in that kind of gameplay, so I can't really tell my own story. But what I am hoping, it wouldn't be as much of a place to hang out, but war plots, like that is like you're gonna be invested in building that thing up and then putting it against each other, and then what they actually have said is they want you to actually feel the pain when you see one of your expensive plugs in your war plot get destroyed, and you're like, oh, I have to rebuild that. Oh, like feel a little bit of pain.
You have to,
because
that makes it that's what makes it a game. Like,
yeah, I mean, if it doesn't cost you something, then it obviously doesn't matter, right? And so if it costs you something, then now you're going to be more serious about either defending it, building it, being offensive, and taking somebody else's crap. It's like
if it doesn't cost you, it starts doing this. It's the feel good slot machine. Just cha-ching, give me more stuff. Cha-ching, make me feel good about myself. Cha-ching, give me another achievement. Cha-ching, give me more gold.
And that's the reason why, not to be talking about this other game too much, but that's the reason why EVE is so successful with the members that they have, because the members that play EVE consistently are diehards. They're not necessarily fanatics, but they mean what they're doing. It means something to them, because when they lose a ship or they lose a whatever, they lost it. They got to go back and they got to rebuild, and it takes some time. So, I mean, the first thing they say is, don't fight with something that you're not willing to lose, right?
We went down the rabbit hole on serious PvP, open world, real full loop kind of PvP with housing. But I agree. I've been waiting for a company to realize that they should make somehow, I don't know how it's possible, make EVE Online on the ground. If you could make it with an avatar running around like a world that big. I mean, it's easy to do with space and jump gates, right? It's a lot easier to kind of build that than it is to do a running world. So, but man, when somebody figures out how to do that, it's going to be gigantic.
I just want to ask, have you looked into the game Mighty Quest for Epic Loot? I know it's not really it's not an MMO, it's not like a mass thing, but just like the feeling of like building something and then watching someone like try to tear into it and watching your defenses destroy them. I think it's
we have it up on freetoplay.tv, and I know Mike Byrne played a bunch of it and he loved it. It's actually a really good game. It's getting great reviews. I have not checked it out yet, but I'm going to actually check it out. It's a free to play game from Ubisoft?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, free to play game from Ubisoft. Well, check it out. What's the whole name of it again? It's Mighty Quest for Epic Loot. That's it. And it's got a lot of personality. Kind of reminds me of WildStar a little bit as well, and like the personality of the characters and stuff. I want to dig into this MMORPG.com article, but first I want to tell you guys about Audible. Audible.com/Gamebreaker. Go to audible.com/Gamebreaker and get a free 30-day trial and a free audio book. That's right, sci-fi nerds. I'm still in it.
Voice softening. Please? I could have kept walking right through her avatar, but I didn't. I was desperate to get to Middletown and locate the first gate, but I was also standing in front of the famous Artemis, someone I'd fantasized about meeting for years. And she was even cooler in person than I'd imagined. I was dying to spend more time with her. I wanted, as the 80s poet Howard Jones would say, to get to know her well. If I left now, I might never run into her again.
This is a great part of the book. He meets an in-game, like he's in a virtual world, and he meets this like character who he's heard only grumblings about of being the best player ever, and actually meets her in game. It's awesome. It's awesome book. Check it out. It's on Audible. It's called Ready Player One. It's by Ernest Cline, narrated by Will Wheaton. Just great sci-fi. And you could be checking this out today. All you got to do is go over to audible.com/Gamebreaker, download the app, put it on your iPhone or your Android or your iPad, whatever you got there. And you're going to get to try out the service for free, absolutely free for 30 days. And you're going to get a free audiobook. So you pick a book, your choice, start downloading it, listening to it today. And if you love the service, it's like a monthly fee. they have like different tiers. Basically, you pay a monthly fee, and then you get credits. You get credits towards a book a month, two books a month, 3 books a month, depending on how much you will possibly listen to. And it's great service. Check it out. I've been a fan for years and years, long before they were sponsors. So happy to have Audible on sponsoring Gamebreaker and UDSP. Audible.com/Gamebreaker. All right, so MMORPG.com spoke with lead gameplay designer Chris Lynch. Definitely worth checking out this entire article. Pulled out a few highlights. First up, he says, one of the ways I like to see housing personally is like my little station. When I'm done adventuring, after I've saved money and saved stuff to sell, when it's time to go sell it and adjust myself, I go back to, I don't go back to town. I go back to my house and sell it to my own vendors. So again, let me get this straight. We could use the bank. We could use the auction house. We can vendor our crap. Our producer's worried. He's just like, towns are going to be ghost towns. No one's going to go to town. Everybody's going to go to their house. Maybe it's okay.
Again, like if you're the kind of player who is really going to want to spend all your plug slots on, your bank and your auction house and your other stuff, so you don't have to like interact with other people, then okay. But I think most people are going to want to actually use their plugs on more interesting things. At least, maybe I'm projecting a little bit. I'm not going to waste my time.
I was going to say, I think you're projecting a little bit. You're going to be like, I want instances and boss mobs. But other people are going to probably put convenience of life. Like, they're going to put, all the little perks to just go back there and hang out. I guess, you know what? That's really kind of the good thing about it, though, because then at least it just caters to the type of player. Again, it's like, well, if you're a little bit more the introvert and you just want to go back to your house and be non-social, like, all right, well, here's I don't mean that in a negative way. I really don't. I'm really not. I really mean it in the fact of like, hey, if you do want to go back to your house and not really, because sometimes it's a pain in the ass though. When certain, going back to the station in SWTOR, man, that was a pain in the ass. Like 8,000 people jump on top of a terminal, and you're like, oh my god, just move.
Or they park their car on top of it so you can't see it.
Exactly. So for some players who just get frustrated by that kind of stuff and don't want to deal with that crap, it's actually kind of good. Use one of the plug slots for one of these things, and I guess you can.
So let me be devil's advocate for a second about this whole concept, in which case your producer's worried about it. What are you doing? Who really interacts with anybody anyway, leveling? I mean, I don't ever run through a town and be like, oh, hi, how you doing, to talk to you. I don't. I'm going from quest to quest to quest, and then if I have the convenience to turn in a quest remotely, I'm doing it. I would never interact with, maybe I'm just a bad person, but I would never interact with anybody anyway. I'm just going to be like, oh, excuse me, move out of your way. And
I agree with you, but I don't want to digress into another conversation of something completely different, but that's the problem with freaking MMO design these days. Yeah. Exactly what you just said is because they don't do anything to ever have that happen. Like they basically set you on this path to just like almost single player game, burn through as fast as possible and don't ever interact with people. I agree with you. Most players probably play the exact same way. I think it's a problem. I wish there would be more reasons to interact with people.
Social classes, like SWG. That's the solution. Just saying.
Just keeps going back there. Just keeps going right back.
Just saying.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess a lot of players at endgame, though, like I said, I bring up Org as just one example, but there's many others in other games where certain towns or castles or areas do become high populated areas of people just to hang out. It becomes their sort of social thing. I don't know. I guess you're right. I mean, I don't really do that. I think people just log into Orgrimmar and just hang out there, but I don't really know what they're doing.
Does Final Fantasy 14 seem like less of a ghost town because of all the AFK players that are sitting in the towns? Like, does that add to the experience?
I don't know. I've been fighting the 1017 boss for like 4 days, so I can't really comment because I haven't actually been able to play the game. Hopefully after today's maintenance, I'll get back in. It's because this jerk down here doesn't log out. He just stays in. He's like, screw you, Pete. He's been logged in for like 6 days straight. I don't know. Yeah, it is. I think there's concerns on both sides, whether things will feel like ghost towns or they won't. I do tend to like cities that kind of feel like robust and big and a reason to go back. Like you go back to Limsa right now and it's just, it's bustling, it's crazy, and it's packed. You go to Org, it's still pretty packed, So, and then I always thought that was like a problem with Rift was that you know, the main hub cities that they made felt so small. They were like tiny. They were like nothing. There was nothing monumental. They were always empty. Like there's nobody ever really hanging out there. I don't know. Maybe I'm more social than you two. You two anti.
I mean, like just
people.
Again, I'm not interacting with those other players anyway, but I felt like Guild Wars did a pretty good job of making their city not feel empty just because of all the NPCs that were acting, and those were really big cities too.
Yeah,
so.
no, you're right.
They had a crap ton of NPCs on waypoints just walking around or stationary. But I mean, it depends on what your social dynamic is. You know, like if you have a guild, and I don't want to drop us off topic again. I'll be honest, I'm not running to buy anybody going, oh, hi, I like your pink ponytail. What? Well, really, are you a Lilithal? What? Oh, that's great. No, I'm going from A to B. Quest. And I'm trying to get to end level. And even when I get to max level, I log in, do my daily, get my money, and then it's raid time. Done. And then if I want to, maybe here and there I do some PvP. But I'm not running around. I'm married. I got two kids. You know what I'm trying to say? I have a job. I have no time for socializing with people I don't know. Come on, man.
See, I try it. I'm a believer that I should be able to enjoy the leveling process. Like, I don't like this idea that the game all of a sudden starts at endgame and, that's when we'll raid. No. I should have as much fun at level 1 as I do at level 50, and I should be able to, like, do things and have fun. It shouldn't all just be about getting to that max level, and then that's when, like, that'll become my game for me, and I'll log in on Tuesday nights and we'll raid, and that'll be it.
Gary.
Should I just give up on MMOs? Maybe I should just give up on MMOs.
I mean, it just...
Shut down Gamebreaker. I'm not playing anymore. Because for single player games, I can play better experience single player games. I can play like any RPG. I can play The Witcher and have a much better single player experience. If I play an MMO, I want to play with people.
So it depends, right? I mean, in some games you can do that when you can agree on when you're going to log in and move forward. Like if you're talking about like Final Fantasy, like right now, this week and a half, whatever, has decimated my guild because I've got I got like 5 level 50s. I got 4 of them that were level 50 on day 1 because they got no lives, I guess. Or they're just really that dedicated. And then I've got a number of people in their 40s, and then about 30 people. We got 58 people right now in that chapter, and 30 of them can't log in. So that means it's going to take, a month, unless Wednesday, whatever this 10-hour, outage is fixed, for them to all be able to log in together, to group together, So it just depends on what's going on.
First world problems.
A number of reasons. Yes, true.
We all can't log in and play our virtual slaying of dragons together. It's going to take us a week to catch up.
Well,
games are serious business. I know. It makes me kind of laugh. I don't know. And whoever in the chat room called me casual, yes, I am, but that has nothing to do with enjoying the game at level 1. It really doesn't. There's nothing hardcore and casual about enjoying a game. It's bullshit. Make a fun game at level 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 50, and then have fun stuff to do.
So to your point, there was a guy who asked a question on the WildStar panel last week, and he opened it right up and punched him right in the teeth, and he was like, "Hey, I'm not really into your game. I just came here because one of my friends dragged me to the panel. But can you tell me one thing?" Yeah, he basically just said, "F you, whatever. It's not WoW." And it was like, well, most good, beginning of the game is good, and maybe sometimes the end game's good, but like, do you have a good middle game? And I thought at first I was like, what a stupid question. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, that's actually a really good question because that's the slag grind that you're trying to get through so that you can get to whatever part it is that you think you're going to be doing at endgame, whether it be raiding, whether it be PvPing. And so they took it in stride. I mean, these guys are some really cool professionals, and they were like, well, we've just tried to build the game so that it has a good, fun story, in which case they were poking fun at their lore master. But then they just tried to say that they were trying to have good, consistent quests, right? Mm-hmm. And so they weren't really looking at it as, okay, well, these 10 are the middle and these 10 are the end. They just built quests and they tried to chain them, I guess.
And have a nice progression and an arc through the entire leveling process, right? Which I'm not going to, obviously, XIV is coming up soon and the show's getting long. We got to keep moving on. But I kind of feel like they kind of got that aspect right. I kind of feel like XIV actually remembered that RPG is actually attached to MMO, and I think a lot of companies have sort of forgotten that aspect of it. All right, I'm moving on. Now I got the chat room all on my side. They're like, wait a minute, why isn't the game fun at level 1?
You're gonna have 6 people in XIV Nation next, or whatever.
The game should be all fun. All right, let me move on. Let's see. What was up he's talking about here? Let's see. I lost my place. The telegraph stuff. Let's see. He's talking about telegraphs here. He said, one of the things we're doing is increasing the frequency of telegraphs, so it feels more like an action game now because creatures are telegraphing much more frequently, which also means that you're dodging more and player skill comes more into play as to how much health you have left at the end of a fight. And it feels a lot better this way. And this sounds great. I mean, I don't think anybody, I don't know if you guys, I'm not complaining about this whatsoever. As long as it doesn't become like I do still have a fear that it's going to become this like insane Christmas tree of like slashes and colors and lines and diagonals and all these different effects. So like it just becomes ridiculous. But if they're varied enough and they're easily digestible, like by, just visually, I would love this idea of just have it constantly be like a dance of really kind of frantic gameplay.
I think this is exactly what my concern was before about, it feels really awkward when you have these auto attacks constantly going through and you can't actually dodge them. And you feel like with all the telegraphs going on, you feel like that is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be avoiding damage, and then there's this constant unavoidable auto attack damage that's going through. So I think, they're hearing the feedback that they're looking at, and they're saying, okay, yeah, we should move some of this damage more towards the telegraph side to make it feel more active, not such a like, okay, I dodged the telegraph for the next 20 seconds, okay, and let me just wait and then keep fighting, and I'm still taking damage, and it just feels a little bit weaker that way.
I mean, it sounds like a lot more fun than just standing there spamming like, nuking your nuke spell and just like,
yeah.
Who knows? All right, next up, it does kind of sound like Carbine considered the disorient mechanic a little too punishing. We talked about this last week, and I think we all giggled and thought it was great. He said, Chris Lynch said, I've been thinking about the disorient on the trip out here, and maybe instead of disorienting. Yes.
Disorienting.
Yes.
Your movement controls, we could disorient your ability hotkeys, something that's a little less jarring and less punishing. I don't know. That was the CC that rebound your movement controls, right? I mean, how you guys feel about this? They're backing off a little bit.
Is it just me, or does disorienting ability hotkeys actually seem like way more disruptive?
Yeah, it's like
oops, I popped my cooldown. Oh. Like, doesn't that seem way worse? Like, okay, move it. I don't know.
I see it as the same thing as long as it's not random. If they don't make it random, then it doesn't matter, because all you're going to do, if you have a smart keyboard, is just reprogram it, and then, I'm stunned, hit the G9 button, and now I'm back to being good.
I'd love it to be random. It should only be random. It'd be kind of stupid if it wasn't, because then people with like keyboards like that would just have the advantage over everyone else, because everyone with one of those keyboards would do it, and then I play with a Mac keyboard. That's how casual I am.
With a Mac mouse. I mean, so in that quote came out of like a bit where they were talking about how the disorient CC actually felt punishing, and when they were playtesting, it actually felt really bad because it didn't play into their whole CC philosophy, which is like the whole recognize, react, reward thing. So you recognize, this is the CC that's on me, then you react to it in some way, and if you react successfully, then you're rewarded for it. And so the example they gave is like, there's maybe a quest where you're disoriented and you're supposed to just get back to a quest hub. And so that's like a sort of an extended experience of being disoriented, because like there's like this squid thing on your head and you can't really control your character. And so for that much time, okay, you can sort of do it and you can recognize what's going on. But when you're in the middle of a fight, like I think that they said that maybe there's the disoriented the Storm Talon fight, then all of a sudden you're walking into telegraphs and you're just immediately dying, and so you don't really have the time to recognize, react. So yeah, I mean, like, I can see that it would be really bad if suddenly, you don't, in split seconds, you have to actually recognize exactly the way you're disoriented and then get out of the CC, otherwise you wipe in a raid. That would just be really, really, really punishing.
Yeah, I mean, raids is where this would really get interesting. I mean, in the open world, it might not matter as much, but raids, it's something like this, and like flipping them around is going to totally you're going to wipe like consistently, I would think.
The only thing that to keep in mind, though, is that they have said consistently that their raids are going to be hard. They're not going to be for the faint of heart.
Yeah,
so,
but that just feels unfair at that point. It's not something that you can like train yourself to be like, okay, then if it is random, like if it isn't, then okay, yeah, you're just like, okay, I'm getting ready to push left when I want to go right or something like that. But otherwise, yeah.
This is kind of interesting. Carbine, so obviously they're looking at different options here for stuff like this, and one thing that they're considering is some sort of out-of-body experience. They said your ghost form gets thrown back, and you have to get back to your stunned body to revive while the enemy is basically beating on you. That's kind of funny as well. I mean, I guess this might be more fun than the spamming the F button, which is what this would take place of. So I think that'd be kind of cooler than that. It kind of goes in line with sort of their their general philosophy, I think, as well. They said that would be another way I would look at handling stun. That way it isn't macroable, but still has the same recognize, react, reward mechanic. Then you have a gameplay that you're trying to do because you can see your body getting beat up, and you need to get back and tell it to get away. So that's pretty much why we questioned if a stun CC even had a place in WildStar last week for the most part. So now something like that I think makes a lot more sense. Kind of visually makes for a goofy time as well. Finally here is that all of the healing classes and some others have access to interrupt armor. What this does is that if you get hit with a CC whilst you have units of interrupt armor, let's say 2, it doesn't do anything, but it decrements your interrupt armor down to 1. If someone else hits you with the CC, it will decrement to 0, but the effects will still be absorbed, and then any type of CC after that will go through, but it will protect you from interrupts or CC during that time. I don't know. Is anyone else a little concerned about not everyone having interrupt armor?
I don't think it's a problem as long as healers can put it on other people, so that you can protect other people with it. I think that's actually better then. I would rather not have everyone have it because then it's more, unique and different. I don't like everyone having everything. So
that would also bog down the server with, covert channel activity. It would be just one more thing to be slowing the server down.
This is true. I guess yeah, I don't know. Just gonna be interesting to see how much needed interrupt armor is going to be to have, especially when you get into groups. If it becomes almost like a gear check where you have to have it because it's just so needed. I don't know. All right, I want to talk a little bit about some of the convention stuff. But first, I want to tell you guys all about Shutterstock. Maybe not. What's going on? Are we gonna crash? Oh, there it is. Hello. Work. Click. Click.
This stream's lagging a little bit.
Something's lagging.
It's freezing up.
I don't know.
Shutterstock.com/Gamebreaker8.
Something just happened. We're derping out. Look at us. Woo, derpy. Go to shutterstock.com and use offer code Gamebreaker9. It is September. For 25% off your brand new account. We have a new show that we started. We did like a pilot of it, and I use Shutterstock for it. It's actually hilarious. I'm going to play a little bit of it. Hang on. Have you guys watched Coltrane's comments yet?
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. This is coming in a big way. We're working on it, but this was sort of a test. But right off the bat, this image of the lady. Yeah, it's from Shutterstock. So I went right to Shutterstock and found the perfect lady in deep thought.
Ooh. Yes. This is Coltrane, and it's time to read some YouTube comments that'll make you wanna vomit. Wow, Gary, could you crank up the douchebag dial a little more? Hey Mike, stop using speed. Lol. The top 2 are f***s. Go have sex with World of Warcraft. Fuckers.
So there you go. Comments with Coltrane immediately went over to God, just we're derping hard right now.
Shutterstock.com.
Go to shutterstock.com. I'm trying to show you where. Wow, I can't do anything. I'm like totally gimped right now. Let me close this and see what happens. There's Mark. Nope. There it is.
Scratching his nose.
Well, here were some of the images. This was the light box I put together. Like you remember? I don't know if you guys remember. There was what was it? Deep Thoughts with Jack Handy from Saturday Night Live. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that? That's what I was thinking of when Coltrane started doing this piece. So I was trying to come up with some good images. This was a contender, the cheeseburger. I don't know why I thought that might be funny. Then we had, oh my God, I want to break the system today. Burn down the system. I hate you right now. We had this one. I was thinking about using the feet kind of at the fire, but that one wasn't funny enough. And I will smash this mouse in about 30 seconds. This one was a little too provocative. She was like showing too much shoulder.
Can you really show too much shoulder?
Can you? I don't know. But then this one was perfect. She was like in deep thought. She was just listening to Coltrane's voice and just
talk to me, Coltrane.
Thinking deeply about these comments. But there you go. That's I use it every day. I love Shutterstock because you can find even like for jokey, funny stuff like this when you're looking for that perfect picture. There's tons of stuff. I mean, there's so much good photography on Shutterstock.com. Like you could find it for anything. And I was looking for something that like was completely off the wall that like didn't make sense with the actual show. And there you go. Found it. Perfect. Go over to Shutterstock.com. Make an account. You can make one for free. You can start saving stuff into light boxes and sorting all that kind of good stuff. And then when you decide to sign up and make an account, just make sure to use promo code Gamebreaker9. You're going to save 25% off on your new account. There's a couple different options on payment models. There's you can buy packs, so you can download like an X number of packs of images, things like that. Or there's monthly subscriptions, which is what we have because we download a lot of stuff. So I think we're able to down 25 things a day on Shutterstock because we do use it a lot. But there's some different pricing options, so you guys should check that out. But like I said, when you're ready to make an account, make sure to use Gamebreaker9, and you're going to save 25% off on the Shutterstock. All right, so convention season pretty much over at this point. So PAX is done, Gamescom, that's done. We still don't know about our classes. 2 classes are still yet to be revealed. Did you guys expect them to be talking about them at all this week?
I did, only because Stephen Frost actually said that, like a couple of weeks ago, he said with Gamescom and PAX coming up, we'll be talking about the new classes, and then, like later on, as the PAX panel went through, and then people were like tweeting like, "Hey, where are the new classes?" And then they just tweeted like, "Stephen Frost is a liar. It'll come later."
The one thing that I thought immediately once they pushed this to 2014, and I didn't even think about it till like Sunday, was that actually this is kind of a benefit for us because it gives us something to look forward to for PAX East, which, yay, it's going to East.
Oh,
Coast.
look at you, the optimist over here. A lot of people were expecting them to talk about this, though.
Yeah.
But I mean, now it gives them something. I think they pulled back. I don't have any proof, but this is just what I think. I think it gives them something as a hook for PAX East, because that's going to be the next, to my knowledge, the next con, right? And it's in 2014. It's should be March of 2014, which would be like the last big hurrah for some hype cycle prior to launch. And when they say spring of 2014, to me that's the last day.
The last day,
summer,
right?
So that would give them the shot in the arm that if they haven't got any hype by that time, which I can't imagine they wouldn't, that gives people something to hold on to in addition to war plots and anything else they haven't announced along the way.
So obviously a lot of people were expecting. David Bass jumped in and he actually had an answer to the question of where the hell are the new classes. He said it's a great question and a fair question. He said honestly their gameplay isn't ready to be shown yet, and we thought just an announcement of the names of the classes wouldn't be very interesting. As you may have read from various beta leaks, the 2 classes aren't even in beta yet. We're still working on them internally. He then went on to say, we want our announces to be cool and chock full of info like the last couple have been, rather than tossing something out that's casually without any gameplay to back it up. It's a shame our development schedule didn't match up with Gamescom or PAX, but we're pretty confident that the announcement will be exciting enough on its own and doesn't need to be attached to a specific con. So at least some straight up fair enough answers, just not ready. There's a little behind on the schedule here, so we're just gonna have to wait a little bit longer for the classes.
Yep. I think it's completely reasonable that if they don't feel like the gameplay is ready, that they should hold back and actually come out with like a really nice presentation where they're showing it off. And because what they really want is they want to excite people about these new classes. They don't want to just sort of say like, "Hey, this is the new class," and just sort of like, "We'll tell you more about them later." That really kicked the wind out of the sails of the announcement. So, yeah.
So we just have to wait. Just have to wait.
Yep.
And play. Yes, thank you for playing. Thank you so much.
Were you a little bit?
Yeah.
I'm just getting out. We're getting out of the show before we just lose the whole thing. Farhan Siddiqui, follow him on Twitter at Unindel, UNINDEL, and right here on UDSP, which normally airs on Mondays at 3 PDT. So come on and show up for the live show where we don't crash every 5 seconds because we're holding on by a thread right now. Mark Taylor, follow him at Guild Umbra on the Twitter, Guild Umbra, and of course right here on the show. Always a pleasure, both of you guys. And you can follow me at Gary Gannon, follow Gamebreaker TV, Gamebreaker TV, and a whole bunch of other stuff, new shows, new sites. Keep on the lookout for our EQ Next forms to go up very, very, very soon. So have a great week, and we'll see you next week for some more Unicorn Duck Shadow Puppet.